So many of you know this last week has been really a time of remembering Father Moon's passing and his legacy for his life. And so what on Thursday we had a ceremony that was broadcast around the world from Korea, and then yesterday we had a nice tribute event here. So I want to follow along with that and just show a brief video that was produced by headquarters just to give a little summary about the legacy and history of our church founder, Father Moon. So the legacy of Father Moon, of our founder, is do a little quiz here. Can you give me some ideas of some of the things that are part of the legacy of our founder? Okay, this is a quiz. So what I need to know from you, what things are part of the legacy that of our founder?
Intercultural blessings.
Intercultural blessings. Very good. Is that all? Just I mean, a lot of us are, intercultural blessings because that's a lot of us, right? A lot of us come from we have an arranged marriage, So I got my spouse. That's certainly a significant legacy. A lot of our families exist because of the couples and the marriage and the international marriage and the blessing of marriage. So that's huge. Is that all I did?
Ocean Challenge.
The ocean! All the business ministries feeding the world through the ocean, machines, the seafood, so many different things. Young people's challenge to get out on the ocean and challenge themselves. What else? Interfaith work, a lot of interfaith work, working together with people from different religions to come together to one world under God. Traditions that can bring God into our lives, heavenly traditions and practices. Education. Actually, universities, right? Established in America, the Unification Theological Seminary, and in Korea, the Sun Moon University, and we also have Bridgeport University here in America, and other schools around the world. What else? Teachings, the divine principle, right? The core teachings to help us understand a life of faith and how to grow and realize our purpose in life. Also looking at history. So many things contained in the revelation, the teachings of the divine principle. Unity, bringing unity between all people, regardless of their religion, their nationality, their race, their background. Bringing unity. Unification Church, right?
Yeah, Reverend Moon, I think of all things, brought us to the understanding of God's pain and suffering over the human.
Understanding about God's heart. God's suffering heart, that God is not just a distant God, but God is a loving parent who cares and suffers when the children suffer. Understanding about the spiritual world from the divine principle. We understand in detail about the nature of life. What else? A few organizations, right? We have a church, Unification Church, but our Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. What else? Women's Federation for World Peace, the American Clergy Leadership Conference, the Universal Peace Federation, a whole effort to critique Marxist thought and communism and the spread of communism in the world. Ambassadors for Peace, also part of the Universal Peace Federation, bringing people from different traditions and disciplines, scientists, people work in sociology, religious people, business people, media people, all different types of people acting as ambassadors for peace to build that world of true love and peace. The Washington Times, and actually a number of newspapers, Seagate Times, around the world, important, significant media, newspapers and media outlets. Sports, entertainment. We have the Little Angels School. We have the soccer Providence. Yeah, there's lots. There's so many things, right? And so, there's so many, it's kind of like the list goes off the page. So the question is for us, when we think about all this legacy, it's truly important. I think the most important legacy that Father Moon would say, even for himself, is that as the true parents of humankind, he planted true love on the earth. He planted the tradition for true life and true lineage for all people, even not Unification Church members. All people. This is why instead of Unification Church, we go by Family Federation for world peace. Because the most important thing is that core family. And established that breakthrough of God's ideal of having true families in this world. So while the organizations and all these other things are very important because they help to work to build that ideal world, at the core, Father and Mother Moon broke through a barrier that's blocked humankind throughout all of human history. So, pretty big. What about us? So, what's our legacy? This last week, thinking a lot about Father Moon's legacy and preparing for Saturday and thinking of all these things. Sometimes it's a little bit depressing for me. I think, well, he's done all that, so maybe that's good enough. He managed all these amazing things, but me, I'm just getting by. I'm that little fly that's holding on to the tail of the horse as it zooms down the race course, right? Actually, if we go back to the very beginning, what's the very beginning of the divine principle? The core purpose of life is what? Happiness, joy. And how do we get joy? Through fulfilling our desires, through three blessings, through the practice of love. So, I want you to join together with me in this cheer, okay? So, what do we want? We want joy. Very good. So, how do we get there?
True love.
What do we want?
Joy.
How do we get there?
True love.
What do we want?
Joy.
How do we get there?
True love.
Right, I believe you. So a couple of weeks ago we talked about true love, right? True love as a verb. It's not something we just feel, it's something that we do. It's an action that we take. And last week we talked about defining true love, real love, as caring about the happiness of another person without any thought for what we might get for ourselves. And also we know when we receive that kind of love, that's unconditional. So, what do we want?
Joy.
How do we get there?
True love.
So, what does God want?
Joy.
Oh, I think you're right. God wants joy. And how does he get there?
True love.
And who does he want that true love to come from? Us, the children. We are the people that God's counting on to experience that joy. So, here's some words from Father Moon. He says, this is from the Chun Sung Gyung about true love. What should a person leave behind him to be remembered for eternity? The first thing is a legacy of love. And the second is a legacy of a true life. Actually, from the book Peace-Loving Global Citizen, if you don't have a copy, please ask us. We definitely want everyone to be able to read this book, this autobiography that Father wrote just 5 years before he passed to the spirit world. But he has a whole chapter that's called Leaving Behind a Legacy of Love. So here's just an excerpt from that. It says, because we were born in love and lived our lives in love, love is also the only thing that remains with us when we are in our graves. We receive our lives in love, live by sharing love, and return in the midst of love. That's going to a larger and larger and larger level. It is important that we live our lives in a way that we can leave a legacy of love behind us. So, legacy of love, right? Because we want to accomplish the purpose of joy in our life. Well, how do we accomplish that? So, Here's a few points. Just when we think about my own personal legacy of love, because each of us, we want to leave that kind of legacy of love. The first place we look at is, well, the three great purposes of our life, right? First, who have I become in my life? My first purpose in life is what? Is to become a person of true love, to grow and mature myself. So who are we going to bring joy to by perfecting ourselves? God and ourselves, right? We're going to bring fulfillment and happiness. What's the most precious legacy that God wants to see, first and foremost, from us? Is that our lives are lives of joy and beauty and love. It's amazing. God gives us these life. So here's this life, this molded clay filled with incredible potential for doing amazing things. And each one of us, God gives different special qualities and abilities and gifts, characteristics and personality. And God just can't wait to see what we're going to do with that. What are you going to do with this life that I've given you? Our first legacy is the gift that our lives are to God, our Heavenly Parent. What we do with our lives, how we shape ourselves, we are co-creators of ourselves. We are by the choices we make, by the decisions we make in our lives, by the responses we make to the environment, we shape who we are. And to bring the greatest fulfillment there, to accomplish that great first purpose, we have to invest. The first place that we need to invest is in our relationship with God. That's where it all begins. So concretely, how to? We need to pray. We need to study. We need to spend committed quality time with God, our Heavenly Parent, on a regular basis, on a daily basis, my daily bread. Every day, we need to be receiving and interacting with God, our Heavenly Parent, so we can nurture and grow ourselves. So our traditions of doing Hunduke, which means to study and to learn, every day, investing in our own growth, our understanding, our experience, in our relationship with God, understanding God. The whole purpose is how can we mature our love, to see things from larger and larger perspectives, not just myself. You know, that's the baby is just, it's all about me. As we grow, we see, oh, actually I also have brothers and sisters I have to pay attention to. It's also about them. It's about my friends. It's about my community, nation, and ultimately the world. So maturing in love, that's our first legacy that we want to leave. We want to bring joy to God by Him seeing that love manifest in our lives. And the development of our unique gifts and talents and abilities. That means we have to invest. You know, if we don't do anything, then we'll grow up and we'll be whatever we are. But God's given us lots of raw material for us to shape. So where do we go? What direction should we aim? We should aim towards our passions, our interests, the things that excite us. God planted that excitement in our own mind. He said, you like that? Hey, do something with it. A great story that Reverend Thompson loves to tell about many of you have seen in the Bay Area, did you know they have a nickname? The nickname is, they're the Lego Church. Have you heard this story? There's a brother, a hard-working brother, and he's doing lots of things in the church, fixes things like that. And one time he came up to the pastor and said, I just really don't feel like I'm doing much for God Providence. And, pastor says, oh, please don't stop what you're doing. It's a huge blessing, all the work he does. But Reverend Thompson asked him, he said, well, what is it that you're interested in? What do you like? And he kind of said, well, I like Legos. And Reverend Thompson, when he tells this story, says, Legos? Isn't that like what kids play with? The little building blocks that you can put and connect together. He said, well, that's interesting. So what can you do with that? And he said, well, I really like to build. I really like Legos. He builds this incredible thing. He said, well, that sounds nice. Maybe you could make a display or something, and set up. He says, yeah, I could do that. He says, okay, well, how about one of those, can I have the whole top floor of the church? Her Thompson goes, what? He actually built an incredible display that now, he's been doing this for a number of years, that now has brought thousands of people to the church just to see this incredible Lego display. Every year he does this display. Amazing. Taking something that he enjoys, that he finds joy in, he has a gift in. And if you see these incredible displays, you recognize he's really got a gift in his creativity. Taking that and using that. So in our own lives, each of us, we have our own Legos, our own favorite things that we like to do. That we, and this is part of what our legacy will be. Invest in the things that you find joy in. God gives you that joy. It's not, oh, I shouldn't do that because it's not standing up front and preaching. It's not, being the head of the corporation. Whatever gifts we have and abilities, that's where we invest. That's where our legacy is going to come from. So invest in your gifts. It means school. It means classes. It means finding mentors. It means practicing and developing your skills and talents, using it for the benefit of others. And taking those talents will bring us real joy and happiness. Because what's the purpose of life? Joy. And how we get there? Love. Right, so we take those gifts and out of love we use them for the benefit of others. So, our legacy is, number one, who do we become? What did we create out of this ball of clay that God's given us, this life full of potential? Well, the second is, who have I loved? Our second great purpose in life is family. My relationships in the world around me. When we teach Divine Principle, we talk a lot about how important in our life to develop our love lungs. So when we enter into the spiritual world, we can truly feel and understand and appreciate the love of God. So in our life, practicing love. Who have I loved? How have I been able to overcome the times, first, my family, the community, the society, the nation, the world. Those are people that I can practice loving. But even more challenging, how do I love my enemies? How do I overcome those resentments, those angers, those hurts that I have? This is not anything we want to leave behind us as a legacy. If anything, we want to leave forgiveness and love. But our life, our heart, it's so easy to be filled with anger and resentment towards, injustices that have been done to us. You can say it's justified for us to feel resentment because this person mistreated me. However, that only hurts me. For me to be able to have that loving heart, it doesn't mean you have to trust someone that you know is untrustworthy. It doesn't mean you're stupid. But you let go of that hurt. You let go of that resentment and that desire to punish the person and instead look for ways for healing. This is the kind of legacy of true love that we want to practice and invest in. Each of us, we can think of people in our lives that we have some kind of about. So, at minimum, we want to let go of that angst, that anger. Pray for them. Find a way to forgive them. Try to see them from God's perspective. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't do something wrong. And that doesn't mean that they haven't hurt you. That doesn't mean that they haven't, that they are right. What that means is that you are taking God's perspective and loving them even in spite of it all. And amazingly, a lot of times that opens up the space for them to change. But we can't change each other. We can't change another person. Like we talked about last week, the real power to change someone is when we become sources of unconditional love. Because that's when people, when they receive that true love, they can respond and they can change. We can change. We can all change. So addressing those challenges in our life. So our second legacy is loving people. It's who have I loved and how have I loved, and the giving and receiving of love in my life. And then the third great purpose in our life is what we do, the actions in making a difference in the world around us. The third great blessing, right, is that dominion over the things in creation. By following our passions and talents and our interests and using those to make a change in the world around us, to make a positive difference. Now, especially as dads, a lot of times, my legacy is I went to work every day and I brought home a paycheck so that my family was fed. Right? Yes, that is not an insignificant legacy, right? Yeah, families, would we agree that is not insignificant? that I had a job, I wasn't maybe the most fulfilling job, I didn't have to feel the greatest joy for my job, but it brought home the money. So that my family was fed, we could have a home, and so I could provide for my family. This, of course, is very, very important and very precious. But there's so much more to us than that. In addition to that legacy, where is it that I have interests, that I have passions, that I can make a difference beyond providing for my family, beyond taking care of the kids, which is, for moms and dads, this is also very significant legacy, our investment in our children. Taking care of the house. I'm so grateful, for us to go out of the office, out to work. When we come back, we don't have to do the work at home. Hopefully, if we have a team there. So, in addition to these things, though, there's each one of us has different talents and abilities, creativity to invest. So our legacy is not just the things that we do, but it's the actual implementing of our passions, following our calling, using our experience for the benefit of other people. What do we do in the world around us? The impact. We are co-creators with God to create this amazing, amazing world that God envisioned from the very beginning. So all these things, these three great purposes in our life, they all add up to the final legacy. The overall legacy is in my life, And the first great blessing, who have I become? What have I given to God? What beautiful flower have I brought beautiful joy for Heavenly Parent to experience through me, as a child of God? Who have I loved in my family, in my community, but also even historical problems and resentments? How have I broken through barriers that God wants to see broken through? Historical Cain and Abel, resentments and problems. What have I done with my life? What actions have I had to impact and make a difference in the world around us and maintained and shaped this world? All of these things, we multiply these things are multiplied through touching the world around us. So who we are, how and who we love, and what we do, this touches the world far beyond our own individual lives. Far beyond even the people that we know and that we see. Most of us never met Father Moon personally. All of us can say our lives have been touched profoundly through our experience and relationship with him and his teachings, through our movement and the traditions that we've learned and been taught. So we also are people who leave a legacy much larger than ourselves. When we become true sons and daughters, when we practice and live a life of true love, when we take actions in the world around us that bring and multiply goodness. So, our legacy of love, let's connect with God, our source. Let's love people, and let's make a positive difference in the world. So, here's the two summary points that Father Moon makes from his autobiography in that leaving a legacy of love. So he says, the most important is not to commit sin and to live a life that is without shadows. This is an important clue for us how to practice that. To not engage in acts that give pause to our conscience. When we do things that give us a guilty conscience, it always leaves a shadow in our heart. Father Moon has spoken many times that our conscience is our friend. Now sometimes we say, oh man, my conscience gives me a hard time. Oh, that conscience, I'm ready to go out and have some fun, and then I've got, what? My conscience is saying, well, why don't you invite that other person to come have some fun too? Oh, do I have to? But that conscience is right there. If we think of my conscience as something that bothers me, then we don't get the benefit. My conscience is something that helps me experience greater joy. Honestly speaking, when I invest myself and when I follow my conscience, the potential for joy is even larger, even greater. So listen to that conscience. And when we don't follow our conscience, there's always something eating at us. Even, oh, I'm going to go out and have some fun. Oh, I should bring it. Never mind. I'm not going to think about that right now. Let's just go out and have some fun. And here I am in the middle of having all that fun, and I'm just kind of, something's missing here. How come I'm not feeling the joy? How come there's some joy missing here? What's going on? When we don't follow our conscience, we stop ourselves from being able to experience free, genuine, complete joy and happiness. That conscience is our friend. That conscience can help us find that fulfillment and joy. Because our purpose in life is what? Joy. And how do we get there?
True love.
And who's going to guide us to get that true love? God and our conscience. That conscience is the one that's always there. True love, remember? True love, remember? Remember? Don't forget. True love. So, don't deny your conscience. I'm wrestling with this all the time. I should probably put a big thing on my wall. Don't deny your conscience. If it helps. But truly, our conscience is our friend. But the second point that Father Moon makes in the conclusion of this chapter on leaving that legacy of love, he says, to resolve to do significantly more work than others have done. What? More work? Father Moon says, live your life with an attitude of devotion and diligence, telling yourself, for example, that you will plant 2 or 3 trees in the time it takes others to plant 1. That doesn't sound like so much joy, so much fun. Actually, when we invest our 100%, our best effort, when we make our full commitment to do things the most effectively and successfully that we can, that's where we find real pleasure and joy and satisfaction. When we do something that's just kind of halfway, well, I did it. It was okay. I did it. It's good enough. Right? Good enough for government work. No. Good enough for joy means I give it all. I invest completely to do the best that I can. That means in whatever arena of life that we're thinking about, art or music or my job or my family or work or anything that I'm doing, that I do it sincerely and genuinely with my whole heart. This is where I find joy, and this is where our lives make a difference. This is where our legacy truly can lie. So living also for larger and larger purposes. Not just myself. Better than myself is also my family. But also in addition to my family, to my community. And beyond my community, to my society, my nation, the entire world. So continually growing and expanding that practice of our works and actions. So, finally, here's Father Moon's words again, like I read before, from the book of Chonsang-gyong about true love. What should a person leave behind? What should a person leave behind him to be remembered for eternity? First is a legacy of love, and the second is a legacy of a true life. Please join me in prayer. Good morning, beloved Heavenly Parent. We are so grateful for your work in our lives and the investment that you made in each one of us. The incredible potential that you gave to each of us to create something special, something truly unique with our lives. Heavenly Parent, we want to bring joy to you and fulfillment by actualizing all that incredible potential that you've given us. And to become people of true love who can spread that in our relationships with the people around us. That we can use our unique gifts, talents, abilities, and experiences to be a blessing to those around us. To truly know love and to have loving relationships of real, genuine love. Heavenly Parent, we want to take all this and leave a legacy of action, of works, of making a difference in the world around us, that you can find joy in, that we can find fulfillment and satisfaction in, and that this world can truly be blessed by. Please guide us as we seek to continue to grow, to leave a legacy, grateful for the foundation that we stand upon, the incredible legacy of Father and Mother Moon. As your sons and daughters and his blessed central families, we offer up this prayer and determine ourselves. Amen and adieu. Okay, thank you. Please turn to your neighbor and share about leaving your legacy. God bless.